All right, welcome in, everyone. It is Monday. It's time for Full Court Press. And, Rob Vino, I want to know two things. One, I want to know how your weekend was. And two, I want to know if you can remember a Monday during conference play where there was not a single main board game, because that's what we're looking at tonight. Every single game is on the extra board, and I'm about to vent about it real quick, but I want to see how your weekend was first. And is this like, I don't even remember this from last year. I feel like we always at least get one main board game to talk about.
Yeah, it is a little bit odd, Adam. I get that there's an NFC wildcard or an NFL and wildcard playoff game going on. And I tried to think back to last year without looking it up. If this was the case last year where they played one on Monday night, maybe they did. But when I looked last night for the overnights and all I saw was extra games, it was a little bit surprising that they wouldn't even put one major conference game on, but they just don't want to go up against the NFL. End of story, right? They just don't want to broadcast when the NFL is on ESPN or wherever this game is on tonight. I don't even know for sure. ABC, Monday Night Football generally is an ESPN thing. We've seen them take up 3 of their networks for a college football game. Perhaps that's going on. I'm not sure. But anyway, it is what it is. You came to a conclusion. I agreed to it that we would start somewhere else today and then work our way into tonight's card. And by the way, the weekend, real quick, Adam, was a very neutral, starting with Friday night, 5-5 in college basketball. The profitable part came because part of the 5 winners were the stronger plays. And I have not really released anything super strong all season long. Lower based percentage, little higher volume, but we did turn a profit this weekend again. So happy with that, and on to a new college basketball week.
That's sort of been by design for you for a little while now, though, right? Kind of like ramping it up when it gets to conference play, which makes complete sense with the sort of the randomness of results in the early going. Forget if you're getting CLV or not. November, December, the results are straight up just random, in my opinion.
Yeah, they certainly are. And it's hard to, again, we've discussed it, but I'll just briefly say that it's just hard to know how cohesive these teams are going to be when you're putting 3, 4, 5, 6 new pieces into your rotation. Yeah. Even the coaches have mentioned it's hard. It takes time, evaluation, some experimentation. So we wait till the dust settles. We can get a firm grip on these teams and go after it. I will admit, Saturday, one of my top plays was Indiana first half against Nebraska. And boy, am I glad I shaved it down to just first half, because Nebraska, what a comeback in the second half out of them.
Yeah, what a team, what a season for them so far. Kind of in the same boat as you. I went 2-2 on Saturday, but I hit the 2 4%ers, lost the 2 3%ers, and then yesterday came back with a nice 2-0 sweep, both 4% plays, Illinois, and then my Siena College Saints getting it done. So, as far as today's show is concerned, listen, we like to talk these smaller schools more than anything. There's going to be plenty of time for that. But what we're going to do is start with a game on tomorrow's slate, and it'll just give us more time tomorrow to hit the bigger games. So, Rob, there was a time, and this is the thing that kills me about the fact that, like, I feel like they've really taken away the Monday slate. I never really think about that. I have a huge NFL play tonight. It's my biggest one of the wild card weekend. And I didn't even think about the fact that, like, maybe college hoop doesn't want to go up against the NFL. But, Rob, I mean, I remember a time where I was at a Syracuse game maybe 15 years ago on Big Monday. There was 32,000 people there. Like, I feel like that's almost been watered down, which is disappointing. And it puts us in a position where we have to talk about a Tuesday game to kick off our Monday show. But that's what we're going to do. Rob, did you know that the KFC Yum Center in Louisville, Kentucky, has the second largest capacity for college basketball? Did you know that, other than the Carrier Dome, which is a football field?
The only reason I knew that was because I think you did say that on a show about a week, maybe whenever you were traveling. I think you mentioned that was a huge attendance place, a huge capacity arena. So I did know, but not due to my own research, because I did hear it from you. And the Carrier Dome obviously has been that way for ages.
Yeah. Carrier Dome's not an arena. I don't know why. I mean, we're still playing basketball. The football stadium here makes no sense, but, whatever. It's either here nor there. Point is, Louisville tomorrow night, Virginia comes to town. We don't have a line for this game yet, but I chose this one for the feature because it's not going to be more than a point or two either way. Ken Pom and Torvik both have Louisville -3. I'd be shocked with the Louisville injuries right now if it's actually 3, probably a little bit closer to pick. So I feel like our breakdown is going to be applicable regardless of what the spread it ends up opening in this game. Rob, Louisville's going to need all 22,000, whatever it is that the Yum Center holds tomorrow night. They sort of desperately need a big win. I feel like even though they're ranked, they're probably still ranked. I know they lost to Duke last week. I guess you could call it a bounce back over the weekend, though it was hardly an impressive one against Boston College. This is like a huge spot for them at home. It's a game they need. Virginia comes in, playing some good ball, and this would be considered a signature win for Louisville if they can get it done. But they've got some issues right now, Rob. How do you see that playing out here? This is Tuesday, Virginia, Louisville at the Yum Center.
Well, unlike Louisville, Virginia under Ryan Odom seems to have no issues right now. They just continue to roll, and it's tough to bet against them at this point, Adam. I've sort of taken now that we have about 4 games, right, in conference season. In most conferences, you have probably 4 games played. And I've started to somewhat discard in certain instances the overall statistics and turn my attention to what's going on inside conference play statistically. For Virginia, it doesn't really matter. I'll say this, the conference schedule I looked at, there's no major edge here. Both teams have played Cal and Stanford, big deal. But the other side, Virginia has played a couple of better teams, including NC State on their side. So I think there's a slight schedule lean toward Virginia in this game. But at this point in time, Pat Kelsey and Louisville, they are under a little bit of fire for not being able to win a huge game at this point. I would say this about Virginia: everything I've seen out of them tells me that arena size, crowd noise, whatever, isn't really going to affect them in this game. What would affect them, again, with Louisville, Adam, I think it's been said by the two of us multiple times, they need to hit threes. Plain and simple, Louisville's got to hit threes to be as effective as they can be in these games. And I'm not sure against Virginia that that's going to be the case here. As you mentioned, injury situation, definitely a deterrent for the Louisville side. But to me, man for man, or let's go this way. Let's go category for category, fundamental edge for fundamental edge. There's really nothing clear that I can find in Louisville's favor other than I'm going to use the word desperate here, and maybe I shouldn't use desperate. I just can't think of a better one that's a little less, that lessens it, softens it a little bit. But I think Louisville is kind of in that spot where they need a win against a team like this. And so you don't like to bet against what I would call cornered animals. They come out pretty fierce. However, all that being said, everything would lead me back to Virginia in this case at that price. I just don't know that over the course of 40 minutes, again, unless Louisville shoots lights out, Adam, I just think Virginia, interior, perimeter, and apply that to the defensive side. I just think they're better in all spots right now. Louisville has been on this kind of under run for guys looking for totals early here. They've been on this under run, but I think it's because they've just been overpriced by the odds makers so far where totals are concerned. It's not like their games are low scoring. These numbers are just, the market is setting it a little bit above where Louisville can get to. And with injuries, don't know that it gets there here either. So we'll see where the total is going to land, but it could be a play on under as well here because Virginia's a pretty solid defense. Despite the philosophical change, they're still a pretty good defensive team.
Yeah, a good defensive team that seems to continue to get better at the defensive end. They've definitely improved, I think, as the season has gone along defensively. Now, the one saving grace here, in my opinion, for Louisville is the only way you're beating Virginia at this point is to hit the three, right? So like Virginia has done such a good job. Ryan Odom, remember, Ryan Odom, very different coach than Virginia's had in recent years. they're good defensively, but it's a different type of like being good defensively. Whereas like Tony Bennett and those Virginia teams played that pack line defense, super slow, limit the number of possessions. This is more like the VCU teams that were good defensively in past years, where great rim protection, athletes, really going to be hard to sort of score inside against them. So I guess the counter argument here, Rob, would be that is the like Louisville wasn't probably gonna beat Virginia at the rim anyway. So like that's I guess that would be the counterpoint here. That Louisville is the type of team that can go like nuclear from 3 on a given day and win a game like that. My concern is so I was at the Louisville Duke game last week, and in hindsight, that first half where Louisville hit 10 threes, I think was more because Duke just kind of went through the motions on defense. We actually talked about this on this show a couple of times where, very, very sort of lackadaisical on defense Duke had been in the Georgia Tech game, the Florida State game, and even the first half of that Louisville game. Duke came out with a much stronger defensive effort in the second half. Louisville forgot how to space the floor. Just the floor spacing for Louisville was awful in that second half. They could not create a good look for anything. And then you carry that over into the BC game. I was actually on Louisville for one of my losses on Saturday. Thankfully, only a 3%er, and we hit the 4%ers. But I was on Louisville thinking that they were going to come out and just bomb Boston College. And they had those same floor spacing issues in that game. It's almost like by attrition, they got to the 12, 13-point win. That was not a great performance by Louisville. And now I'm starting to look at, okay, how much of that floor spacing and sort of keeping the team, the shape of the team, how much of that's Mikal Brown, who's not there. Ryan Conwell didn't play on Saturday. So, yeah, I have some real concerns for Louisville right now. I don't know if I can go back to the well with them, but they do profile as a team that might function better than some others against Virginia because of the way they shoot the 3-point shot. So it's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. And I wanted to talk about that one today because there's a lot of big games tomorrow, and it'll free up the hour for those other games. So that's Louisville, Virginia. We're not going to talk about that one tomorrow. We'll keep that one here. And it'll be an interesting matchup for sure.
Yeah, and I'll give the viewers one more avenue for Louisville, which was taken advantage of by Virginia Tech when in triple overtime they beat Virginia. A 41-15 free throw edge in that game, Adam. Plus 26 in attempts on the free throw line got Virginia Tech home in 3 overtimes. I don't know that home whistles are going to be to the tune of plus 26 when you're a perimeter-oriented team. But that being said, it's not like Virginia Tech makes a living at the rim either. So, it's just another avenue. Maybe the refs blow a lot of whistles on Virginia, which hasn't really been an overly handsy type team. But as you mentioned, in Ryan Odom's system, it's a little more applicable than it would have been in Tony Bennett's system, where in pack line, you're not really chasing ball aggressively, getting up in ball handlers' faces. So we'll see, but that's a tough way to handicap a game, saying you're going to get a huge free throw edge.
Yeah. Well, in your, I know you love the comp game angle. In your opinion, isn't Virginia Tech and wouldn't that be the comp game to Louisville a little bit?
Yes. And you know what? In just staring at the box score here, Adam, Virginia Tech didn't even shoot well. I thought maybe they had shot the threes well in that game. They didn't. They're 9 for 28, 32%, and 37% from the floor. Their victory came, and again, they didn't even shoot free throws well, but it was the opportunities. They're 28 of 41 from the free throw line. If Louisville can get to the rim like that, I would, you do need players like Mikal Brown and Conwell in order to get to the line. Of course, Conwell, more of a flamethrower. But Brown, I would think, is a guy who could visit the line. It's a difficult ask for Louisville here, but we'll see where the number comes out. Because what if the number's not 3, Adam? What if the number shoots overnight to 5.5 or something? Then you probably have a little bit more to work with on their side.
Yeah, I mean, KenPom and Torvik both have Louisville a slight favorite there. So I think if anything, it would probably trend toward them not being favored with the with the fact that they've got a couple guys out. That's why I picked that game as the feature, because we don't have a number yet for it. But I figured, it's going to be probably pretty close to like pick or a bucket either way. And you can apply the analysis the same way. All right, now let's go to the Monday slate. Listen, we're going to find a couple winners over the next 45 minutes. I know it is not the most extensive slate, but Garth has jumped in the chat with a donation. So Garth, very much appreciate you and the donation to the show. And he wants to go a little MEAC action. He wants to talk Delaware State and Howard. And Rob, these smaller conferences are so tricky. I got to see Howard play on Kids Day in Drexel. They won that game. And that was part of a non-conference stretch where I was so impressed with what they were doing. And I think I even came on the show maybe within the week or the days after that. This is, of course, after Howard knocks off NCAA. Hampton, that's a really nice win for them. Drexel then goes on the road and wins at UNC Wilmington as a 15-point underdog. And I really was convinced that this is the team to beat in the MEAC this year when it's pretty much just them and Norfolk State. What happens, Rob? They come out and lose their first two MEAC games because why wouldn't they, right? Because that's just how it works in some of these leagues. They go on the road, lose to South, they didn't even lose to the teams that I thought would be the other teams in the mix, right? They didn't lose to Norfolk State. They came out, lost to South Carolina State as an 8.5-point road favorite. And then they lost over the weekend as a 2.5-point road favorite at Maryland Eastern Shore. Boy, am I tempted to lay the points at home here with Howard. I still think this is the best team in their conference. I think they're a better team than Norfolk State. I can't wrap my head around how this team just started 0-2 in league play, except for the fact that, a team like Howard plays a lot of road games in the non-conference. Not exactly easy to then get dealt the 2 road games to start league play. I just think they're such a superior team to Delaware State that I'm gonna take a position here on the Howard side. But for Garth, he wants to know about the under. Both teams have combined 5-20 to the under, and that was my big takeaway from the Drexel game. I thought Howard defended them well for 40 minutes. So talk to me here, maybe about the total, and then I'll sort of take the side in Delaware Howard.
Yeah, I think the way I would look here, honestly, if I was to, just decipher the total, is maybe towards Howard team total over. It's a team that shot ridiculously poor in those 2 road games to start the MEAC season, Adam. And it's a team that they enter here the fastest paced team in the league as far as conference play is concerned. And they also have an opponent that ranks as 4th in pace. Neither team, it's a couple of games, but the offensive efficiency is down on both ends. Obviously, Delaware State's not a good basketball team, haven't been for quite some time. So we're looking solely from the Howard side. I would think that the potential, it's been pushed up a little bit, the total has, that the potential is there for it to get over simply because I would expect Howard to shoot better here tonight at home. And with pace, you get opportunities. I would be afraid to bet full game over because I don't know what Delaware State can contribute here against the Howard defense and with their miserable shooting. Therefore, when I have thoughts like that, I immediately zero in on the team that I think can contribute. And for Howard here, the price tag is not unreasonable, 69.5 over. If they make anything in this game, and again, their 3-point shooting efforts in the 2 games against South Carolina State and Maryland Eastern Shore, especially against SC State, 4 of 23, 17%, and they only shot 31 and 38% from the field. Delaware State's not a tremendous defensive team. They've got some statistics that look nice in conference right now after a couple of games. I think that'll change real quick. So for me, Garth, my immediate reaction would be I'd rather just trust Howard to score their share and trust the pace of play to give them enough chances to get to over 69.5. It's not a huge ask against Delaware State. So probably wouldn't make my card, but if that's the way I was going to go, I'd be a little scared of full game and go back to just team total Howard.
Yeah, I was really close to playing Howard over the weekend, and I don't know. I mean, it was probably one of those days where to be honest, Rob, it got lost in the shuffle a little bit for me of 140 league games because I had every intention after they lost to South Carolina State to come back with them in their next game. Glad I didn't, since they managed to lose to Maryland Eastern Shore. I'm going to use this for the parlay. I think even though I don't show a huge number edge at 9.5, I think that number is about where it's supposed to be. Coming in 0-2, you're at home. Delaware State, I believe, yeah, they're 1-8 on the road. Again, all of the teams in this league are going to have a bad road record, so that doesn't really matter because this whole conference is going to go out, play a lot of bye games. So I don't expect any of them to have a good home record. It's just, I think Delaware State likely. So that you have two 0-2 teams right here, the only 0-2 teams in the MEAC right now. I think Delaware State likely finishes near the bottom of this league. Rob, like you look at this Howard roster. Cam Gillis from Lehigh was a guy that I liked at Lehigh a lot. He's averaging double figures for this team. I thought that was a great addition for them. They also just got Cedric Taylor, the third back. I think he was like a JUCO transfer, but the point is, like, in the 6 games he's been back, he's averaging 11 points per game. These two teams are not even remotely close, in my opinion. And I go back to, like, listen, like you don't just go to Trask Coliseum and beat Wilmington. That is a insanely tough place to play and win that game. They were the better team. Like, that's the thing. They were the better team the entire game against Drexel. I don't know how they lose those first 2 games, but they're not going to go 0-3. And I think double digits is reasonable. So I'll go, that's going to be my parlay leg here, Rob. I'm going to go Howard minus 9.5. There's still 9.5. Hey, by the end of the show, we might have to make that 10. But either way, anything better than 10, I think is a good bet right there. So yeah, I'll lay it. And I think, Garth, your path to the under too. Howard might win this game so lopsided that there's like 0 extension at the end. Like, I could see them winning this game by 20. Okay. All right, let's go. I see, I guess the game that was going to be the feature game, if I didn't go to Tuesday's board, would have been the only national TV game tonight, which is the Patriot League in the standalone 6 p.m. spot that they've had for years on CBS Sports Network. And it's actually a pretty good one. It deserves, never mind, it's 7 o'clock, but still, I mean, it might as well be a standalone tonight since they're not putting anything else on national TV. This one's down in Washington, D.C., Rob, at Bender Arena. One of the, I've still yet to go there, but I have a cousin that went to American, and it's definitely one of the more hype atmospheres in the Patriot League. So I've heard. Bender Arena in D.C., where the American Eagles play, defending Patriot League champs. However, they lose a couple of guys that were sort of huge for them the last couple of years. Matt Rogers, 2-time Patriot League Player of the Year, no longer there. Coming in as the 4-0 Navy midshipman, I think, coming into the year, some people had a couple of teams up at the top, but to me, it's become apparent Navy is going to be the team to beat in this league this year. The market has suggested that might be the case, bumping this up from pick to 2.5. Are you seeing anything catching your eye in Navy American Patriot League action tonight?
Yeah, well, the first place I went to, Adam, was total because American was on a stretch in non-conference season where I believe they were like 9-1 over the total. Surprisingly, kind of like the Denver surprise, right, which came to an end on Saturday when they didn't get over the total in their 16th game, so 15-1. But American was the same way through the non-conference. Then they hit conference season under, and then an over against Holy Cross. But it reverted back to what American generally is, which is the slowest paced team in the league. There are so many categorical advantages fundamentally for Navy in this game. They both shoot the ball pretty well. Navy a little bit better, but I'll go strictly to the defensive side. Navy ranks inside the top 4 in all 8 or 9 of Ken Palm's major defensive categories, either 1 or 2 in almost every single one. They're only 4 in one of those. Makes it tough on the American offense here to get anything past Navy. And then Navy shooting wise, they're the number one free throw rate team in this league, getting to the foul line better than anybody, while American allows teams to get to the free throw line in conference play more than anybody. So edge there, edges on the defensive end. The problem becomes, it is a home game for American that I know Navy's the team with the bullseye, right? So they're going to be fired up here tonight, and they're capable. I mean, we saw in non-conference Americans capable. I just don't know that they're good enough over 40 minutes. I kind of agree with the line move. We have seen some, maybe one or two places that have shifted back to a 2 from 2.5, but the major move took place already, right? From pick all the way to 2.5. And in an instance or 2, 3. I think I agree with it. I think Navy's just better at what American does in all facets. And I don't know about the come from behind ability for American at this point in time. When you're accustomed to playing that style, Adam, which is kind of take the air out of the ball and then you get behind, 6 or 8 becomes 14 or 15, or might as well be 14 or 15. Don't have to win the game, of course. They only have to come within 1 triple of Navy in the end to get the cover here. But I'm not sure they can. So I'd probably lean Navy in this instance. The total, for what it's worth, has been pushed from 137 to 140, which still could be in play a little bit because they are both such good shooting teams. And as I mentioned, American had been on the early overrun, but that has really cooled off in conference play. It's just like they reverted back to who they know they are once conference play started. The Holy Cross game Saturday did score a lot of points, and Holy Cross plays with a little bit of pace.
Navy getting to the free throw line at will is very much spearheaded by one guy. So that's Austin Benigni is I probably butchered the pronunciation of his name. That kid lives at the foul line. He's small. He's 5'11". I was at Navy last year and was tall. I was standing right next to him. We're the same height. But he is built he's just a little pinball, and he just knows. I mean, if you haven't watched Navy play, what you'll see tonight is he's very patient. He can get in the lane, get to the rim, and he is a pro at throwing himself into you, and then you being the one that makes the contact, and he just lives at the foul line. And then when he gets there, he's an 88% free throw shooter. So that is a huge part of Navy's offense. He leads the team in scoring 17.8 points per game, and he just lives at the foul line. So in terms of being able to close out games, I mean, that's how Navy closes out games. They just keep the ball in his hands. He goes to the free throw line, and there's some games this year, 11 for 11 from the foul line, 13 for 14. And I mean, he's a tremendous weapon for them. Something I love about Navy this year is so Ed DeChellis was the coach forever, finally retired after last year. John Perry takes over, and something he's done, which I like, which I always thought maybe hurt Navy a little bit, is he's reduced their rotation. So the last couple of years, Ed DeChellis was just subbing in waves of guys. I mean, he'd play 10, 11 guys. There was times where Navy would sub. It would be a full-on line change. And I always felt like it didn't really let the key guys get into the rhythm of the game. Guys that, in my opinion, Benigni should have been playing virtually the whole game. They have, so now they've got a 7-footer, which you don't see at Navy very often. And Aiden Kehoe felt like he should be on the floor the majority of the game. And last couple of years, I would watch Navy, and it would be they couldn't really get a rhythm because they were constantly subbing guys in and guys out. So this year, Perry has gone to a much shorter rotation. I think it's helped them tremendously. And the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause here with American. So coming into the year, they were a fade for me big time in the Patriot League. Reason being, you had last year's team that made the NCAA tournament had 3 or 4 guys that have been with that program for 4 years. Matt Rogers, who was, player of the year in this league a couple times. Lincoln Ball was a multi-year. I think he was a 4-year senior. Elijah Stevens was the guard that many thought would transfer up and came back. So you basically lost 3 seniors all that have been with the program for years, like just something that you just don't see in college hoop as much these days. And I really thought that was going to hurt this team. But Dwayne Simpkins might just be a pretty good coach because they're young, they're inexperienced, but they can play. And this is a tough place to play. So, like, on one hand, I love how it sets up for Navy from a matchup standpoint, but I can't help but think that this could be the spot where, American steals one at home and Navy sort of suffers a rare Patriot League loss. So, yeah, it's going to be a good one. I'm torn. I'm torn in this one. I don't know which way to go.
Real quick, Adam. An additional advantage for Navy here, besides the free throw line, if it comes down to that, American fouling quite a bit, Navy getting to the line quite a bit. That's a huge edge. But American U just doesn't offensive rebound. And if you get a lot of one and outs here, because Navy is a terrific defensive rebounding team, see the gap between being bottom 20 in offensive rebounding and being top 30 in defensive rebounding percentage is huge. It's like the free throw rate we discussed. So free throws, board work, does it offset the venue? Does it offset the motivational angle for American? Obviously, a Navy team just off of principle is going to be venue proof. So I think there's a lot of reasons to like that side. And again, you do kind of fear college basketball is college basketball. You have to fear some of these spot plays. But again, I think we discussed this last week, in Nebraska, just to add one to what we discussed, because we were discussing how spot plays just don't work the way they used to work constantly. You could just green light those things. But Indiana, full game against Nebraska is definitely a situational spot play that just didn't work. And in retrospect, the visiting team, the team that you should have faded, came from a large deficit in the second half to win. So spot plays, not necessarily a great reason or a 100% reason to run to the window with somebody. I think Navy's probably the better team.
Yeah, and I'll point something out. American has sort of been forced to play small this year. Of course, Matt Rogers was always the anchor big on this team. They had a guy that I don't think has played yet this year, who was supposed to be the center, and Eric Michaels. So that could be a big problem against Aiden Kehoe, who has sort of emerged as the most legitimate big man in this conference. 6'11". He's, I believe, a senior now. I know he's been there for a couple of years. This could be a great matchup for him. So, yeah, I think if you forced me to make a play here, it would be Navy. But it's definitely don't underestimate Americans' ability to steal one at home. I feel like they've been doing that for years. Typically the toughest trip in the Patriot League, except not for Navy, because Navy is the only other Patriot League team that's down there in kind of the DC area. So regardless, will be a good one to watch tonight. A couple people in the chat saying Navy team total over should get there. Yeah, I can't disagree with that, especially if they get a little extension and they're in the lead, because the need needs just to go to the line and hit 10 foul shots. So might get you there even if it's not supposed to get there. But that one's on CBS Sports Network tonight, 7 p.m. The one nationally televised game on this slate. And Jose Perez says he really thinks Navy is the side. Well, again, if you guys end up on that, I hope you cash your ticket there. All right, Rob, let's move. Well, actually, we'll wait for the comments to roll in. I'll go to. Do you have a game that you kind of on this slate knew you were going to want to talk about? Do you know where you want to go for the parlay at this point?
You know what? I'll go ahead and go, because I had a choice of three. Navy was one of them. For those of you, just for what it's worth, Navy was one of the three I was going to choose from. I have another side, though, that I think is probably better here. Another game that I think is better. I'm going to go to the Alcorn State, Alabama State game, Adam. A game that's seen huge money on both ends so far this morning. Alabama State up from 6.5 to 8.5. They're at home here against Alcorn. The total up from 149 to 153.5. And I feel like that's where I want to go here. Alabama State has not yet been able to exert, so to speak, their offensive muscle. But Alcorn State is so bad defensively, Adam. And the choice here for me came down to, do I want to run with this move on the full game total and play it to get to 154 or more? Or do I want to isolate the home team against the ridiculously bad defense and just say, Alabama State, go get me 81, and I'll live with that? And I think that's right. That's where I'm going to go with the parlay here. I'm going to isolate. Alcorn State can get up there and score points too, but I just feel like this is a spot for Alabama State against a miserable defense. They haven't had high scoring efforts so far. Like I say, it's been a little bit since they've been able to exert some offensive muscle, but here against this team, it would seem to be the way to roll. So for me, I think out of the three I was choosing from, and this is going to make my card. So for those of you that are going to go ahead and maybe, for those of you who are on the 3-day plan between me and Adam, and we'll promo ourselves in a little bit, but this is going to make the card today, so you can write it down. But I'm going to go with Alabama State over 80.5 in a game where I see a lot of pace, a lot of firepower, and the home side probably finally getting their chance to break loose offensively.
Rob, I love that. I was I didn't really know where I was going to go for parlay leg, but if it wasn't going to be Howard minus the points, I would have laid it with Alabama State. So I sort of love how that worked out, because I would have probably stole your play, or couldn't use the same game, but either way, not sure how many of these shows can say I was at Alabama State, one of their most recent games. I went to Alabama State's game last Monday, and again, like I kind of watched that game and felt like they were like definitely the more talented of the two teams. Just thought they got really frustrated by Arkansas Pine Bluff's like just sort of relentless effort, and we'll talk about them in a second. But this is an Alabama State team that kind of everyone knows at this point has the crazy upset win over UAB. I actually didn't think they played poorly in the game against Memphis. I know my clients took a gut-wrenching, brutal loss in that game. They lost by 21. We had Alabama State plus 20.5, and they didn't score the final 3 minutes of the game. And pretty much all they had to do was hit a foul shot to cover, and they did not. But if you watch that game, I mean, they played Memphis it relatively competitive for the majority of that game. They played Missouri relatively competitive for the majority of that game. They played New Mexico pretty competitive. So this is an Alabama State team that we've seen compete for most of the season. I wasn't surprised so much that they lost the Pine Bluff game being on the road. What I was really surprised was that they lost to Jackson State over the weekend. But we've talked about him on the show as well. Deshaun Ruffin had 36 points in that game. Deshaun Ruffin, former Ole Miss, standout prospect that was supposed to be good at Ole Miss years ago. It is just a cheat code in a league like this. If you're going to run into him scoring 40 on a given night, you're probably going to lose that game. So Alabama State still at home. Don't have to travel here. Alcorn State, in my opinion, Rob, I've talked about the SWAC and there being a lot of good teams in the SWAC this year. Probably the top 6 or 7 are all very even. And I think you're going to see that play out as the season goes along. Alcorn State is not one of those teams. This is one of the teams that will finish, in my opinion, bottom 2, bottom 3 in this league. There's a clear drop-off to me in the SWAC between basically the whole league and then Alcorn, obviously Mississippi Valley State. There's I don't know who else you would put in that very bottom, but those two I certainly have toward the bottom. So I think Alabama State rolls them here. I think it's a double-digit win. So I think you could lay the points or go your route and go the team total.
Real quick, Adam, without, going out and giving, when you get to play, you can get the full analysis, but I often say that I'm a bounce back guy. And just one thing that stood out in my mind when I went ahead and played this game was the 2 for 22 that Alabama State shot from 3 the other day. You never expect those things to repeat themselves from teams that can shoot it a little bit. So just another angle here to why we're playing points with Alabama State up and over 80.5.
Yeah, I love that, and like I said, I think you're going to get both of those things. If you get an Alabama State team total over, I'd be shocked if they aren't covering. That's a double-digit win for them, in my opinion. Okay. So that's the parlay is locked in. I don't know. I think the package that I'll promo the 3-day package. I think it did okay. I went 2-0 in college basketball yesterday, and I won a little bit on Saturday. Can't remember what happened on Friday. I really don't remember.
You probably, if you purchased, you probably did what we do for 365 days a year, and you probably grinded out a small profit. So we'll look to balloon that 3-day profit if you jump on today.
Yeah, and like we said, we have that up all season. So if you're enjoying the show, you're enjoying the analysis, we're going to come here and give you an hour every day, Monday through Friday. The rest of the time, we're doing it in written form, and you'll get the plays that we actually play. 3-day package. That's over at WagerTalk right now. All right. The chat really wants to stay in the SWAC and talk Bethune Cookman. This is awesome. If that is true, Bayou says, so Bayou says, first of all, the SWAC is as good as it gets. If you haven't sat and watched the SWAC broadcast, it's an absolute treat. They self-produce the broadcast. They're as good as it gets. And also they're all great follows on Twitter. And so Dr. Bradley, that's the guy's that is the player's name on Bethune Cookman, or Doc Bradley, returned over the weekend against Grambling. And Bayou says the X page made a post. It says the doctor will see you now. That's of course Dr. Bradley. Last year, believe he was from Pine Bluff, averaged close to 20 points per game in this league. So a huge addition for Bethune Cookman here, Rob. But man, if you had forced me to pick a winner in this league prior to the season starting, which would have been very, very difficult to do with so many teams close at the top, I think I would have settled on Southern as the team I thought was the best coming into the season. And but again, speaks to the parity, speaks to the how like strong the top half of the SWAC is this year. Southern is 1-2, and they're going to be a dog on the road here against Bethune Cookman. So I have to say, I love the angle of Doc Bradley back. Bethune Cookman, of course, made some headlines in the non-con as well. But I don't know if I'm going to fade Southern here as a dog. What do you think? Bethune Cookman, Southern, do you have anything in this one?
Yeah, when you were just saying, Adam, Bethune Cookman made some waves in the non-con, and obviously it was the season opener against Auburn where they began to make waves immediately, and then the relentless non-conference schedule that they played kind of took its toll on them. But for the Southern side, I mean, they kind of made some waves too. Went to Washington and
Should have won
overtime. 99-93. I mean, played a great game there. So they played the same relentless schedule, and it took its toll on them too. So as we always do in the SWAC, you start fresh here. I somewhat lean toward Reggie Theus's team here. Now, the minutes that were played on Saturday by Dr. Bradley in his return were only 17. So that obviously he's on a minutes restriction. They're working him back, 7 points, etc. Probably will be a bigger addition to the team and a bigger piece of the rotation, I would say, by game 4 or 5, once he's got a few under his belt again, because it does look like they're being a little bit careful with him. 17 minutes. Pace should be good. Of course, you know me, I'm not really looking at sides to begin with. I'm looking at total to begin with. And this is one I had the small check mark next to go over. Hasn't been pushed really out of range yet. 152, only up to 152.5, which kind of indicates if you get a 77, 76 game, you get over the total, you win the money. And to me, with both of these, especially the pace that Southern is going to play at, probably to me seems like it's very doable. So without having a play on this game, I would say that's the way I would look. I would look toward this total getting over. I think both sides. I don't think Reggie Theus's team fears the pace either. So for me, it would probably be with any form of, decent shooting in this game. 153 again should be very doable. Don't know that it'll make the card, but that's the way I would lean.
I mean, you look at Bethune Cookman's roster. This is kind of an insane roster for it to be a SWAC team. I mean, there's recognizable names all over this roster. Daniel Ruzon was great for Manhattan for like a year. Um, you got Bradley, who was near a 20-point scorer in this conference last season, 19.6 points per game in the SWAC last season. Hetty had a really good year last year for Central Michigan. I mean, Reggie Theus went out and built himself a team. So even though I kind of came in thinking Southern might be the best team, I don't know if I want to play against this Bethune Cookman team, which just like on paper, when you look at the talent, might be the most talented. I think it's fair to say that they have the most talent in this league. Bradley only playing 17 minutes last game. Does it mean he plays more here? I don't know. Probably, right? They're probably easing him back in. So if he only played 17 over the weekend, you got to think that they're trying to build him back into, like, he's going to likely play 30 minutes a game at some point. So, man, that's it. You know what? This is just going to be this will be the game to watch tonight out of this league for sure. Because Southern suddenly desperate. I don't think Southern expected to lose to Prairie View and Florida A&M. I think they were probably thinking, well, those will be 2 games we'll win. And so to be 1-2 going into this game, wow, this is a really good SWAC basketball game tonight. Good, again, I don't know what to do with this one because I thought I was going to come on and make a case for the dog, and the more I just look up and down the roster for Bethune, I don't really want to bet against this team. A challenging game right there, Rob Vino. I want to stay in the SWAC though. I gotta shout out my boys at Arkansas Pine Bluff who were so kind to me last Monday. When I went there, they sent me home with gear. My guy Cameo Stokes was a great host. He even said, Rob, he said he loves our show. He said he's been watching the show, which is awesome. And so I shout them out. Great hospitality there at Pine Bluff. Loved my visit there. And the other reason they deserve a shout out, Rob, they're 3-0 right now in the SWAC, currently coming into play in first place. Half game lead over Cookman and Jackson State. I was so impressed with just how hard they play. Got to know that their coach, Solomon Bozeman, former Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year back in 2011 for Little Rock, a team that went to the NCAA tournament. He's roughly my age, like 38 years old. I got to sit right behind the bench for a while. I love the energy of this team. For 40 minutes, they were relentless, just played extremely hard. Again, I said I thought Alabama State was probably the more talented team, but they just got outplayed for 40 minutes in that game by Pine Bluff. And then Pine Bluff turned around and did it again on Saturday. Grabbed another win. I think we're a slight underdog on the road down at Texas Southern. So the question here is, how many times can they replicate that effort? Okay, because they're on the road again. Now they head to Prairie View A&M. Man, I'm tempted to take 3.5 here with the Pine Bluff Lions, Rob, but do they run out of gas on the back-to-back? That's my question. Any thoughts here?
General thought would be yes, Adam. But then again, when you handicap these games, they're all situational. And in this instance, I would probably say I'd lean more towards no as being that answer. And for this reason, whenever you have a team that plays, and I know this is a much higher example, but I'm going to use it anyway. Let's just use Houston under Kelvin Sampson, for example. When you have a team that's high energy, high effort, getting after it constantly, and that's instilled in them, those teams, I generally consider them to be a constant all the way through. Like when they have an effort, you mentioned run out of gas. I don't think those types of teams ever run out of gas because that's what's instilled in them. I don't think Kelvin Sampson's team ever runs out of energy or work ethic or effort, etc. And if that's what you saw out of Pine Bluff, I wouldn't think that goes away. I think that carries over game after game after game. A lot of coaches will instill that sort of style because it covers up nights when you don't shoot well. It covers up nights when maybe somebody's missing from the lineup. If you have everybody playing that hard, you can mask, so to speak, a lot of deficiencies on any given game night. So I wouldn't think that comes into play here. Um, I happen to think that in looking at this game a little bit this morning, that the points probably were worth taking. Um, I just, Pine Bluff, for what it's worth, they're the best. They're a slow tempo team, the second slowest tempo team in this league, but they're the highest offensive efficiency team. That tells you something right there, right? I mean, we're going to control pace. We're going to make our shots. And then we're going to give you a full effort on top of that. That's a tough combo to beat on the road. Or it's a good combo. I should phrase it differently. I should say it's a good combo to take on the road. When you can sort of dictate style, maybe not for the full 40, but again, for a little bit of it, and you can make shots on the other end. I don't know. To me, when I add up all the elements here, I think the plus points are worth taking. Again, not something that I've played yet, but we always do further detailed work as the day goes on, and maybe it does
Yeah.
make the card, but I would lean that way.
I'm so tempted to just take Pine Bluff plus the points. I make it 1. You can currently get 3.5 out there. Rob, your Oklahoma State plug, your buddy that gives us the good info on Oklahoma State will definitely remember this name. Queon Williams was at Oklahoma State for 2 years. He had an insane stat line over the weekend. He's a guard, by the way. 16 points, 17 rebounds. It's his second double-double. The game before, 17 points, 10 boards. So you just want to talk about, like, just outplaying your opponent. That's a guard grabbing 17 boards in a basketball game. That's ridiculous. Jaquan Scott's been awesome for them. And that's the other thing. They have guys that can put the ball in the basket. It's not just like they're all just out here hustling. Like, they have guys that can put the ball in the hoop on this team. And again, just very impressed with what I've seen from them a couple of times. Like, I don't see, that's the thing. Prairie View was not one of the teams that I thought was going to be very good in this league. They upset Southern. They almost took the loss of the year over the weekend in the SWAC. 1 point win over Mississippi Valley State. So who knows, maybe came in a little bit overconfident after the Southern win, but you got to do better than beating the Valley by 1. That's almost a bad result. So yeah, I like Pine Bluff plus 3.5, and I'll be thinking, and yeah, Bayou says, like, listen, that the fact that, like, they're playing hard, but they're doing it in a very controlled manner. They slow it down. He says still 30th in pace in the nation. I would argue that that's probably because they play bye games all winter. And it's like, a team like Pine Bluff's just going to have to play the way the 25-point favorite wants them to play. I think this team probably prefers to play a little bit more slow and methodical. That's kind of what they did to Alabama State at times last week, and I think it worked. So, yeah, I will be strongly considering the Pine Bluff side plus those points tonight.
And real quick, to Bayou's point, that may be the fastest tempo league in the nation. I mean, I don't know.
It's all downhill.
Sure, but yeah, I mean, everybody's in the 70s for possessions or much higher. The one thing I'll point out about Pine Bluff really quick here, Adam, is the fact that, and I rattled off the fact that they're the number 1 offensive efficiency team in the league, number 1 effective field goal percentage. It's not close. Those numbers aren't close. Like, generally in conferences, 1 and 2 won't be separated by 12 percentage points like they are here. So definitely a team that I think with their style could go to Prairie View and win. Like you mentioned, boy, when you come that close to losing to Mississippi Valley, yeah, either you overlooked it or you're just not that good.
All right, we can squeeze one more in here. We'll go to a different conference just to get one more in at the buzzer. A couple people want to talk Stephen F. Austin. I've been wanting to talk about Incarnate Word all season. But Rob Vino, the more I watch Stephen F. Austin, the more impressed I am with the Lumberjacks, the more I think that they're a clear number 2 in this league. So even though I've kind of liked the Word side at points this year, I don't know if I want to fade Stephen F. Austin at home. Anything for you in this one? Incarnate Word, Stephen F. Austin tonight.
Well, I think the way they play, and the one that kind of opened my eyes was the game against McNeese. the 2-point loss. We've talked often about how McNeese is the best team in the league. I think it started back when Brian Power was still with us. And at that point, I think you were pointing out that there's probably 3 or 4 teams in this league. Let's not just call McNeese a um, uh, runaway team. This team has been pretty good, Adam, since Brad Underwood was there. I like the way they're playing this year, though. Certainly, the non-conference wasn't as brutal as a SWAC teams would be, but they were just mowing through non-conference opponents. So you could almost see this coming. Incarnate Word, though, as you mentioned, same thing against McNeese State. Played them extremely well, too. So it's kind of a toss-up here. I think I would lean. I have a bit of favoritism towards the Stephen F. Austin side, but I don't want to sell Incarnate Word short. So, again, when you talk about games that you can watch in the league that are going to be good games in the Southland, this is probably your game. Bayou might argue. He might think Southeastern against New Orleans is the game to watch tonight. But Stephen F. Austin, Incarnate Word should be good. Definitely won't be on my card either way.
Man, I gotta figure out if this is a spot to jump in with Incarnate Word. I guess my only concern is this is the 3 road game in 7-day stretch for them. This league plays Saturday, Monday, so every once in a while in league play, you're gonna have like 3 straight road games where you go Monday, Saturday, and the following Monday on the road. That's what they're running into here. And the other concern is that they really haven't looked good in either of the last 2 games. On the road, lost by 13 at UTRGV, lost over the weekend by 12 at against Lamar. That was one of their worst performances of the season. Only scored 51 points. My gut tells me that they are at least competitive here. That 8.5 is super tempting. But I'm just, the concern with me for Incarnate Word at points in time this season is that has been the defensive end. I like some of the pieces they have on offense. And, is this a scenario where they just have no answer for Keon Thompson and suddenly they're on the road and they find themselves down in that 8 to 10 point range? Stephen F. Austin not going to close anyone out at the foul line, one of the worst free throw shooting teams in the country. So maybe the 8.5 is good. I want to think it is, but I haven't got there yet. So again, I'm high enough on Incarnate Word with Taj Tavesky and some of the good players that they brought in, where I think they compete with the top half of this league. Of course, they have the win over McNeese State, but that was at home. I don't know if I can do it on the road. I'm certainly looking at it. Incarnate Word will be on my short list today for potential spot. All right, we are right at the finish line. Rob Bino, we did not. I think we went 1-1 on every parlay last week. I literally think we split. So we're gonna try one more tonight. If we don't hit this one, we might have to bring the 3-teamer back and then just put in like a joint leg, just to switch it up a little bit. Or we'll let Bayou pick, or we'll bring Bayou back in as the guest picker. That's what we're gonna do. If we don't go 2-0 today and hit this one, Bayou's gonna throw in a guest pick, and we're gonna do a 3-team tomorrow. But for today, the Howard Bison, I'm going to lay the 9.5. Let me just double check and make sure. It might be more fair to call that 10. So let me just let me see what the current line is. No, there's enough. Yeah, we'll call it 10. I think it's more fair to call it 10. So Howard minus 10 is going to be my leg, and then you're going to go with Alabama State over 80.5. That's going to be today's 2-teamer. Howard minus 10. Alabama State over 80.5. Check out the 3-day package that gets you all of my plays and all of Rob Vino's plays for the same low price that it's going to be all season. And let's keep it going. I had a good couple days trying to keep it going. Vino's been grinding along, very solid in college hoop all year. If you're into NFL football, I do have a 5% play in the football game tonight. And we'll see you guys back here in the morning. More Full Court Press. Have a great day, everyone.